had three chopped off.
Yeah.
So we have been using MediShare since 2009, for 9 years. Can you believe we've been using them that long? So anyway, we're just going to dive in a little bit and explore our experience with them and answer a whole bunch of questions that we get a whole lot, because people are asking me a lot about what I think about it, and I'm assuming they're doing the same thing for you, right?
Well, kind of the conversation normally goes, hey, do you guys use MediShare? And I say, oh yeah. Do you like it? Yeah, we like it. Well, what do you like about it? Maybe you should talk to Bob about it.
Yeah, and that's the role I play in our house, I think. I'm
Yeah.
typically doing the financial stuff, but you're taking care of bringing the kids to the doctor's office
Yes.
and all that stuff. So that's really valuable information, like how all that works. So I guess let's just start with that.
Okay.
So what is it like when you go to the doctor? Because, well, let me rephrase that. Let's step back just a little bit. So MediShare, I'm assuming you know this if you're watching the video, but MediShare is a Christian health insurance alternative. So it's not health insurance, but essentially it's providing the same benefit. And more or less the way it works is that instead of paying, your typical health insurance premium that you would every month, you're sending what is the equivalent to a premium over to MediShare via a credit union. And so they're taking all that money, putting it in a big bucket, and then as anybody in the group has a need, they're pulling from that bucket to pay for that medical expense. And that's the gist of how it works. But it's not technically insurance, but for everyone using it, it feels very similar to insurance. But one of the differences is when you go to the doctor's office, it can be a little bit different. So why don't you chat just a little bit about that?
So typically a lot of doctor's offices don't really know what MediShare is. So they have to do a little bit of digging to figure it out. So that's the first thing I don't notice.
All right. And one little thing to add to that is we should also add in that we do not use, I don't think we use any of the doctors in MediShare's network. Isn't that correct?
That might be true.
And so this changes the game a lot. So if you use an in-network doctor, I think because we used one time and they knew what to do. And, so the network doctors, it's a lot smoother of a process. And so what we do is actually a little bit more difficult.
So typically I will make an appointment with a doctor. I like to go to doctors that we feel comfortable with, honestly. That's probably why.
Yeah, so that's a higher priority to us than it being an in-network doctor.
Right. So they won't necessarily know what's going on. So I will just say, this is what we use. They'll have to do a little bit of digging. And then typically what happens is they will mail the bill to MediShare. MediShare will give us a discount, and then we will pay whatever is remaining from the bill.
So the reason that we're doing a lot of this out of pocket is because we have the highest deductible plan that MediShare offers, which drives our premiums really, really low and makes it so much more affordable than health insurance.
Right. And most of our visits that we have right now are just basic checkups. I think there's only been 1 or 2 times that have been outside of that where it's been a little bit more of a health concern where we're having to go an extra time. So that's also the reason is that we just don't go to the doctor a lot.
Yeah. All right, so let's dive into some of the common questions that we get when people find out that we're in this and when they want to know more about it and whatever else.
Okay, so I'll kind of ask you the question since you're more of the expert than me.
Oh, great, let's do it.
All right, let's talk about the cost first.
All right, so first off, the cost for us, our cost savings, I want to say when we switched to MediShare was probably about 50% over what it was previously or with our health insurance. So like right now for a family of 4 with the high deductible plan, which basically means it's a $10,000 annual deductible. So they don't start covering anything until we reach that point. But for a family of 4, I think we pay $230 a month. I'm 37 years old, and it's based off of, I think, the oldest member's age.
Okay, the second question we have is it exempt from the Affordable Care Act?
All right, yeah, people are always asking about this, the Obamacare thing, if this works. And essentially, they did get an exception, so you can use MediShare. So MediShare absolutely works as an exception to the Affordable Care Act.
Okay, so who is eligible for this? Can anybody join?
So this is a Christian organization, and you must adhere to a biblical lifestyle to be a member with MediShare. And so where this really comes into play is with the coverage aspect. So they will not cover abortions, for instance, or if you're in a drunk driving accident, that will likely not be covered. And so those are important things to know going into the whole thing. So anyway, as long as you adhere to a biblical lifestyle, you should be good to go, and you should be good for eligibility with them.
Okay, so one of the questions I get a lot is how do they deal with pregnancies?
Yeah, so you don't need to wait a year, but what you do need to do is you need to be a member at the time you conceive. As long as you are and you continue paying your quote premium throughout those 9 months, they will cover those pregnancy expenses.
Cool. So we have not been through a pregnancy experience with them, but we have been through 2 adoptions with them. Do you want to talk a little bit about adoptions and maybe like funeral expenses
Sure.
also?
Yeah, so this is a really cool thing that they offer. We have gotten money back for each of our adoptions because, as you may or may not know, adoptions can be very expensive, in which they have been in our case both times. And so it's really nice getting some support from them, some financial support. And so in both cases, they reimbursed us for a good chunk of those adoption expenses. The numbers have changed. Our first adoption took place 4 years ago, and I think we got $4,000 back for Alden. And then our last adoption, I think it's because we're on the much higher deductible plan. I want to say we got like $1,500 back. So either way, just getting some of that expense covered was really, really nice and really helpful to us. We haven't had an experience with the funeral expense thing yet, so I don't know the details there, but I do believe that they help cover with funeral expenses as well.
That's awesome. So I feel like you more than me have called them a good bit. When I call, I usually have a great experience, but I have very basic questions. I think you are the one that handles kind of more of the tougher questions with them. How are they on the phone? What do you feel like about their response time, and what's your experience there?
Yeah, this is one of those areas that they actually used to not be very good at. So we've been with them for 9 years now. And when we first started, every time I called, I felt like I had to wait on hold like a half an hour or 40 minutes. And they have dramatically improved in this area. Now I feel like I get somebody on the line really quickly. On top of that, or for the last 9 years we've used them, they've always been incredibly helpful on the phone, and they've been great to talk to, very kind, and just willing to just answer questions over and over and over again. So that hasn't changed. They're still really great to talk to on the phone, but their wait times have improved dramatically, which is just nice. I mean, because sometimes you need to call and you need to talk to somebody about something, and it's really nice when you don't have to wait on hold very long.
Yeah, and they always seem to pray with us at the end. Do they do that with you?
Yeah.
They're just it's just a nice experience because it's another believer on the other side of the line. And they ask you if you have any prayer requests, and they always pray with us, which I think is cool. Okay, so since our deductible is so high, do you want to talk about kind of how we handle this? Because we are going out of network a lot, and we do have bills that we have to pay. And I know with a typical insurance, you can kind of set that a little bit more where you're not just shelling out cash all the time. But do you want to talk kind of how we handle that?
Sure.
And how you've set it up?
Yeah, so one of the reason that we use a higher deductible plan with them is essentially so we can save more money. And we save a lot by having that super low premium, which we do because, it's like $230 for a family of 4.
It's crazy.
And, I know other people who are paying like $1,000 for similar type coverage. And so it's working out really, really well. But one of the ways that we offset this is by budgeting specifically for health issues. And so we budget, quite a bit each month just for health, just so that if anything comes up, we more or less have a little bit of a health emergency fund sitting there in that cash available for us to spend on these health issues. And that's just made it really, really easy. And so the money that we're saving on the premium more or less goes to that health savings account. And we just kind of build that up. So essentially we're kind of self-insuring a little bit for the smaller things. And then if we ever do cross that $10,000 a year threshold with MediShare, they obviously can step in and just cover everything from there. Okay, so all in all, I think we're both really happy with the amount of money that we've saved. I do think because we're going out of network, it's a little bit more work than using an insurance company, just because you're working with doctors and occasionally you have to manually pay a bill instead of having the insurance company just take care of
Right.
it. And like I said, if you stay in network, I feel like a lot of that is reduced. But in our case, it is a little bit more work, but for the amount of money that we're saving and just stuff like the adoption kind of expenses being, refunded and things like that, they're a great company to work with. And they've been around a long time. And so I just feel really comfortable with them. I never had any doubt that anything wouldn't, that if we ever have a real big expense, that it wouldn't be covered. So I just feel really comfortable with them personally. I mean, how do you feel?
Yeah, I feel really comfortable with them. I mean, you really do most of the heavy lifting with them, but just in my experience of calling them and talking to them, they just seem really. I don't think it's as scary as a lot of people think. I think that's some of the reason why people maybe wouldn't want to go with them is because it does seem a little bit different than a typical insurance company. Do
Yeah.
you agree with
Yeah,
this?
absolutely.
And it's not nearly as scary as I think what the change maybe sounds like.
Yeah. It's just different. That's all. But but like I said, we've been with them nearly 10 years now. And we have
We
no
haven't had any
intention,
problems.
no intention of leaving or
Yeah.
anything else. So if you have any questions that I can answer or that Linda can answer,
Doubtful.
by all means, send them our way. Happy to help. But if it is something you're interested in doing, I recommend just reaching out to them directly because they're obviously the experts and are going to be able to help a little bit better. But as far as questions about our experience, we're always happy to share. So just let us know. And that's all for today. Adios.
Bye.